The next category is endurance, and just like the strength, power, speed continuum, we want to think of this in a similar way. You really want to think of those like a pyramid, right? So strength is on the bottom, that creates your foundation. The power is in the middle, and the speed is on top, because the power is what you build upon your strength, and the speed is what you build upon your power. Now think of that the same way when you think of alactic, glycolytic, and aerobic training. It's the same thing, okay? We want to be thinking of how we're building these, because if you look at alactic and glycolytic training, there is no better way to burn fat, right? To burn tons and tons and tons of calories, because we're not efficient at those. Our bodies are not set up to stop, go, stop, go, stop, go, stop, go. Our bodies are endurance monsters. We are able to go at a steady pace for an extremely long period of time. Now, within the human race, there's a lot of variability in there, but if we're comparing ourselves to like other animals in the animal kingdom, we are not very good athletes, okay? But in the endurance space of running at a galloping pace for a very long period of time, we are awesome. And really the reason for that is because we stand on two legs. There's some really cool stuff around this. So southern tip of Africa, very sunny, right? The sun hits us on the top of the head and the shoulders. It hits every other animal the length of its torso where all of its vital organs are, right? Also, most animals pant to get rid of heat. We sweat better than almost every other animal. I think we're probably the best sweaters. I'm not like an expert in sweating, but I would say we're probably the best sweaters. So we're great thermoregulators, right? And so on a hot day, we can run an animal to death. So think about that the next time that you see somebody out riding their bike with their dog on a leash next to that bike, or jogging with their dog on a hot sunny day. Okay, that dog pants to get rid of heat, and that dog has a coat on that it can't take off. Okay, it's animal abuse. Aside from that, okay, back to this. So we thermoregulate very well. So what happened was we figured out that we could run our food to heat exhaustion, club it, and we'd eat. So how long can you keep and we'll get into residual training effect here in a little bit, but you can keep your aerobic capacity for about 30 to 45 days, if my memory is serving me correctly, about 30 to 45 days. How long does it take to eat a wildebeest? I don't know. I would guess about 30 to 45 days. And there's probably a reason for that, because for a few thousand years, this is what we did. We ran our food to death, then we feasted, and then we moved on. Okay, this is probably part of the reason why female athletes and male athletes are pretty close in their endurance capacities. It's pretty amazing. Okay? It's probably because the women had to keep up with the men, even though the men were out front like trying to kill this thing, right? So anyway, so you have alactic, glycolytic, and aerobic training. Your aerobic capacity is phenomenal. As a human being, we are phenomenal in this department. Okay, this means that we can use oxygen in an extremely efficient way. So we're not going to burn a lot of calories if we just keep this steady pace. Now, this isn't to say that this doesn't mean we shouldn't be using this medium, but it does mean that the jogging craze went too wild. Okay, jogging 5 miles a day is absurd. Jogging 5 miles one day of the week is probably just fine. You want to be doing this maybe like once, probably at least 1 to 6 times a month. You want to be doing this kind of like living in this aerobic capacity, but we do need to build this out. We don't just want to be sitting with our alactic and glycolytic. Now, I didn't define these. So aerobic is like going steady state, long periods of time. The heart rate's just going to stay at the same pace, okay? Alactic and glycolytic are more up and down, right? Glycolytic is like where you just feel like you're going to die. Alactic, you get a little bit more rest time, okay? But they're where your heart rate goes up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, right? So that's a little bit of a better idea of what we're talking about here. Now, what's the pyramid look like though? Well, our base needs to be that huge aerobic capacity. If we really build out this aerobic capacity, then we can build the glycolytic and alactic on top of it, you see? But if we don't build that base, then we're just relying on our alactic and glycolytic capacity, and we don't want to do that. Okay? We want to have that aerobic capacity because we're going to get our autonomic nervous system is going to benefit from it. The wall of the heart is going to thicken a little bit in a good way. The stroke volume is going to improve, so we're going to have our recovery is going to be a little bit better. Our sleep is going to be a little bit better. Our hormones are going to work a little bit better. So there are a lot of really good things for doing that aerobic capacity. The problem is that when we do it too much, then we just stress out the body and not get any benefit. So you want to use kind of a minimum effective dose here. There's no use in, like, if 15 milligrams got it done, why would you take 60? That extra 45 is just a little silly, right? Take the 15, call it good. So get your 1 day a week of aerobic capacity, like 30 to 45 minutes of 120 to 140 beats per minute, something like that. I'm not saying that's going to be specific to you or all of your clients, but something like that. And then if the client wants more fat loss and really wants to hammer this thing down, well, we still want to get that aerobic capacity for the health benefits of it and for the caloric burn and everything else, but we want to hammer on that alactin glycolytic medium at least 2 to 3 days per week so that we can burn a ton of calories, really dig through a lot of fat and get the benefit out of it. Now, from a performance realm in the athlete world, we also need to most of our sports aren't just like bang and then done, right? There's not just a one-time deal. Like if you take tennis or UFC, football, it's this huge exertion, this huge anaerobic exertion of energy, and then we stop. And then this huge exertion, and then we stop. And then this huge exertion, and then we stop. So it comes into play with performance at a very, very high level. So we want to be using this with athletes. We want to be using this with the general public. Now, the big thing in here is keep these people safe. Every performance metric, every metric that we possibly have, your mental and your physical, is compromised when you're tired and fatigued. So think about this before you start programming, or keep this in mind as you're programming the exercises for somebody who's doing any one of these categories. But we want to think big aerobic base so that we can benefit from the alactin glycolytic mediums as well. But you want to be using all three of these, okay? This is a pyramid. We want to be using all three of these for each person in some capacity. Some people are going to use more. Some people are going to use less of whichever one it is, depending on their goal, their body type, their training age, and all the other factors. So keep that in mind, but keep people safe.